Well, hello. Where have you been? I guess the better question is, where have I been? It's been a little while since my last podcast. This is Robert Cooperman with Stage Right. And this is the podcast that talks about the arts and culture with a little bit of an emphasis on theater so that we can try to reclaim some of that cultural territory that we have ceded to the left for decades and decades. And maybe it's time to get a little bit of that back and have a seat at the table. Anyway, I've been out of commission for a little bit. I went away on a cruise, or just a quick cruise up the Atlantic to a couple of states in the New England area, and then into Canada. I had a lovely time, but came home with COVID, and it's been a few weeks now, and it's just still kind of lingering with me. So I'm COVID free, but I guess in terms of the disease itself, but the aftermath is still with me. So still feeling sinusy, still feeling a little bit of a cough. In case you weren't sure what a cough was, I gave you an example. So, but I've been wanting to do a show, and I'm glad that I'm ready to do a show right now. You know, this today's show is going to be a potent potable, a potpourri of things that have been on my mind of late. So just a kind of a hodgepodge of things that maybe will interest you and certainly have interested me. So we're going to start with a film I saw about a week ago. It's called Am I Racist? That's right. Am I Racist? And that is the film that's made under the auspices of Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire. And it is something we need to talk about. And I'll tell you right now, if you have not seen this film, you need to go out and see it. It's important. Okay. Plus, you're going to have a good laugh. And so, just very briefly, what this film is about, because I bet you've heard about it, even if you haven't seen it. This film is about Matt Walsh, who goes undercover to determine if he is truly a racist. But really, what his objective is to expose those charlatans who promote this anti-racism agenda. And he has managed to interview or interact with some of these charlatans who are really in it for the money and also have no clue what they're talking about. It's wonderful. So here's what I loved the most about this film. Okay, number one, there are, and you know this because you've seen the state of comedy these days, right? The humorous scolds who populate the anti-racism regime, the people who you can see they have absolutely no sense of humor. They are so self-absorbed in their crazy theories and in their own righteousness that they do not have a moment, it seems, to stop and just realize that there's a lot of goodness in the world, and they are really not contributing to it. I guess that wouldn't be something that they'd want to find out or be happy about, but they I mean, you can just tell these people, and you can tell them when you meet them, right on the streets. The people who frown at you if you say anything that may be perceived as, I don't. It doesn't even have to be racist. It just has to be slightly traditional or conservative. And they are humorless scolds. So it's fun to watch them get their comeuppance. I love the fact that money was such a major factor for these people to offer insights. These are the people who probably say that capitalism is just a rotten thing, and naturally, they're willing to accept lots of money. Um, and I don't believe for a minute that they're giving it away to charity. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So here are some things. He interviewed a lady named Jody Brown. Now, if you don't know who Jody Brown is, Jody Brown is the mother of two young children. She's black, and two young children who were at Sesame Place amusement park in Pennsylvania. And this was a couple of years ago, I think now. And she was filming her two little kids. One's her daughter, and I think one was a cousin, whatever, these two little young black girls. And this character comes by, one of these Sesame Street characters in the parade, and the Sesame Street character kind of ignores them, overlooks them, and goes and hugs somebody else. Well, of course, you know what the answer is, and I know what the answer is, and Jody knew what the answer was. It's racism. Clearly, there was a white supremacist inside that character costume, and that person said, "Aha, now's my chance to prove that I am a true racist and that I can ignore these young black girls." Ha 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 ha. I'm sure that was the first thing on the person's mind, or didn't see them. I don't know. I don't know. There was a lawsuit. Anyway, he did speak to Jody Brown, Matt Walsh did, in the film Am I Racist? She asked for and received $50,000. $50,000 to talk about how there is racism in the world, especially at Sesame Place in Pennsylvania. 50,000 for them. 50,000. I said that already. $15,000 for Robin DiAngelo. Do you know who Robin DiAngelo is? You should, if you're paying any attention to this anti-racism woke world. She is the author of White Fragility, which was a major work in this area, and you will see that she has been asked to corporations to come so that all of us white people can sit around and gnash our teeth at how miserable we are in a miserable world. Well, she asked for 15,000. They offered her between 10 and 20. She said, "Let's split it down the middle, 15 grand." What a gal. She seemed nice enough, but there's a wonderful scene in the movie. I don't want to give too much away, where somebody who's working with Matt Walsh, who is a black man, uh, Matt Walsh's character says to her, "I think he's due reparations." And Matt Walsh gives him some money, and then she runs off to get some money from her purse, and she gives him $30. And that, that warmed my heart, because that made up for all the sins of racism. Just by her doing that, she gave him the money. She later says she was duped. The whole story. She donated her 15,000, which was actually 14,970, right after the $30 contribution. She gave it to charity. That was after she found out. Okay, obviously it was lining her pockets before that. So Robin DiAngelo, you should take. I wouldn't recommend reading White Fragility, but I would just look into who she is. Okay, and I think she's got another book now that I hope nobody pays attention to. This was a great one, though. This was Race to Dinner. Race to Dinner. And that is two ladies, Regina Jackson and Saira Rao. And Regina Jackson is a black woman. Saira Rao, I think, is an Indian woman. At any rate, they host these dinners for up to 8 white women. And that the job there is to eat dinner and understand what filthy, dirty racists you all are, you white women at this table. And, they sit there, yes, I've got to do better. That's one of the things you hear a lot from the woke side, especially in theater. You hear this a lot in theater. We've got to do better. What are you doing wrong? What are you doing wrong? I will never say I've got to do better. My theater company will never say that, because we're doing fine. We do just fine. Okay? We cast diverse casts. We let anybody in. We don't question who they are, who they sleep with, what color they are. Come on in. You love theater? Come on, you're welcome. I don't have to do better. Apparently they do. Okay, so Race to Dinner. And they have a program that I want to tell you about. They have a program called Race to Self-Actualization. It's a 5-week program. This is from their website, so I don't make this up. Designed for Black, Indigenous, and other women of color struggling to find their authentic selves in a world where they are largely invisible. Do you feel that Black people, Black women in particular, Indigenous women, other women of color, are invisible in this world? In this country? Let's just say this country. I don't. I don't. I see them all the time. I see them on television. I see them in commercials. I see them as CEOs. I see them as, people in the newspapers, editors, I just see them all over the place. How are they invisible, I wonder? But at any rate, maybe they have an invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. I shouldn't mention Harry Potter, right? Because J.K. Rowling said she was not in favor of some of this woke stuff where it came to transgenderism, and so she's now hated by the left. I love when they eat themselves. Anyway, she says on the website, it says that this race to self-actualization is living authentically, means you have a purpose, vision, mission, value, and goals that align with your actions. And all of this in spite of not being in a position of power. Well, what kind of power do you need? What kind of power do I have? Okay, this is, and people who don't think an ounce about this are sucked into this world, this alternative reality, where they think, yeah, I don't have any power. What kind of power do you want? What kind of power do you need? And think about the ways that you do have power. I just don't understand it. Maybe I'm not a deep thinker about these things. I think it's obvious, During these 5 weeks, you will define your purpose and imagine your vision. I mean, there are things about finding your purpose, your vision, your mission, your values, and goals for all people. You can find these kind of, and I think they're all run by charlatans, but you will find these things, doing any simple Google search. We'll find, not only programs that you can attend for zillions of dollars, but also books to read, articles to read, videos to watch. Anyway, identify is another. During the 5 weeks, you define your purpose and you imagine your vision. You identify your core values and the gifts of living in harmony with them. You speak life into your dreams and goals, create healthy boundaries to shape your life relationships, and develop an authentically you life. Boy, oh boy, imagine. I don't know what that costs. You'd have to contact them. I would recommend that you don't. But it's probably a pretty penny to sit through 5 weeks of telling you that you are disgustingly racist, which I'm sure works its way in. Oh, wait, this is for the black and indigenous. Sorry, this is not for white women. Sorry. No, you are the most wonderful people on earth. You're the salt of the earth. And you deserve to have your visions heard and living authentically, even though you're invisible and have no power. So anyway, what Matt Walsh did is he paid $30,000 to attend this race to dinner with the 8 white women, and he interrupts it and he gets them to actually have a toast to racism. It's great. And Regina Jackson seems nice enough, but Saira Rao, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right or do I care, but Saira Rao is just a miserable scold. And she says that this country needs to burn down and start again. It's just a horrible place. What are you doing here then, making money? Go home. If this is your home, like it, or go somewhere that'll be better for you. Okay? Well, nobody's holding you here. As a matter of fact, I'd love to pay for your passage out. Anyway, so I would recommend highly that you go to see Am I Racist? It is at theaters all over the place. I saw it in Columbus, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, where I live. You can find it all over the place. It's funny. If nothing else, it's funny. It's scary. It's sad, but it's funny. And I highly recommend that you go see it. And I'd love to know what you think of it if you do see it. So it's a hoot, as they say. All right. Excuse me. Let's get on to topic number 2, which is bigotry in the arts. Okay. So I have a history with organizations, cultural organizations that give grant money for artists and for artistic purposes. We have a few here in the Columbus area. We have something called the Columbus Foundation, which has been generous with me and wonderful with me. They are not a target of my ire. However, the Dublin Arts Council, the Ohio Arts Council, okay, these are 2 major funding groups, Ohio Arts Council and Dublin Arts Council. They have both recently refused to give me any money, although, to be fair, they have in the past. But this time, The last time I applied to a grant for them, they were very, very disappointed in who I was and what I believed. Now, the Ohio Arts Council, which is a government agency here, they rejected my application. They get, I don't know, 50, 60 applications a year for, grants for the arts. And usually they support almost all of them, but I was one of maybe six who was not. And so I asked for a public records request, which they responded to quickly. And I got the public records request, information about my application and the scoring. And I saw how vicious their readers were, that we were bigoted, that we were non-inclusive. No matter how many times in my application, I said, we welcome all. We have no problem with people, whoever they are. They decided that, no, it didn't matter what you say. We know that if you're on the right, if you're more traditional, you are bigoted, you are non-inclusive, and you're probably very religious. I don't know. I'm a secular Jew. I don't know how religious, but the fact of the matter is there was no mention of religion in my application. So I have been kind of very public about this. People have been telling me not to do that, but I have been in the past very public about them, saying that they really did a disservice and that they are bigoted in their own way. So that's them. I don't know if I'll ever apply to get them again. Then comes the Dublin Arts Council. Now, the Dublin Arts Council out of Dublin, Ohio is very interesting because my shows are produced at the Abbey Theatre of Dublin, which is in the Dublin Recreation Centre. I am a resident of Dublin. Excuse me. Last year, in the last round of grant applications, listen to my voice. You hear that? Is that my voice? Excuse me. In the last round of grant applications, they had 10 applications. They funded 9. Do you want to take a guess which one they didn't fund? Okay. And I met with them, and they were very, very vague. They found some things to nitpick about. Well, maybe you should have put your assets here on the financial statements. None of that will negate a grant, accepting a grant from me. However, there was one. Well, you do have to be more inclusive in your marketing materials. See, this is what I don't understand. Among many things I don't understand, is why do I have to change my tactics to be more inclusive? How about those on the left, which is the vast majority of people in the arts? How about they change their tactics and meet me halfway? How about that? No, can't do that. Anyway, so the Dublin Arts Council, I asked for a public records request, and they said, no, we're not a public entity, which is a strange thing for a local arts council to say. They don't have to give you anything. You had your meeting. I mean, I got some very terse and nasty note from some creature who is part of their board or whatever. And so I could get no information. I am going to apply to them again and see what happens. But again, I don't know what they really said about me. They don't want to say anything. So it's a terribly frustrating thing. So here's, again, 9 companies of various types, dance companies and everything, some of whom do maybe one show in Dublin. They get money. Of course, the LGBT company, he could have put, as part of our performances, we murder people. Please, we want to give you money. We, though, the stage right, the traditional people, we got nothing. I gave it to them, by the way, in a Zoom call. But I'm going to try again and see what happens. But again, no public record to be received from them. Now, I also recently applied to the National Endowment for the Arts. And I thought this was a very long shot. But I applied for a grant, a small grant, to supplement a program that I was hoping to do and continue to do called Preambles, which is where we give original plays a reading, a staged reading. And I wanted to see if they would help fund that. I didn't ask them for anything from my company or anything like that. Well, naturally, I got turned down. And I arranged for a meeting with them via Zoom. And it was a very cordial, pleasant meeting. And they said, you need to put in, they had some good suggestions, by the way, about, well, you could put in a little bit more about the people who are working with you. And I thought that was reasonable. But something told me, something in my head said to me, this can't be all there is. So I asked for a public records request, and they even have on their site a way to get a public records request. Well, naturally, what I got back, first I sent the request in July. Okay, and then maybe June. All right, let's just say June. I sent the request in June, and if you notice, it went dark because one of my lights just went out. That's okay. My lights have been out for years, and after about a month, I wrote back and said, "Hey, I haven't heard anything." And they said, "Oh, well, even though you said that you presented this in June, which I did, we didn't just get it until today, a month later. So now you're on the list for later on, and you'll get it by August 26th, which was my birthday, by the way." And sure enough, on August 26th, I did get their unresponsive response, which was 2 emails, mostly redacted, nothing to do with scoring at all. And they said they are protected. Let me tell you what they said. They said this email responds to your request. It really didn't. For records under the Freedom of Information Act. Any and all documents received. This is what I asked for. Any and all documents received to my grant request. My organization is Stage Right Theatrics. These documents include, but are not limited to, scoring sheets, comment sheets, worksheets, grant provided by the grant reviewers, any correspondence. Okay. Attached are the documents responsive to your FOIA, which is Freedom of Information Act request, with minimal redactions. Ha! Panel review and scoring sheets are protected under exemption, blah, 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 of the Freedom of Information Act. The exemption incorporates the deliberative process privilege, which, quote, prevents injury to the quality of agency decisions. So in other words, I cannot get any information about what they said about me and what they scored about me because that's protected. So a Freedom of Information Act thing that is protected. Interesting. That's not a Social Security number. Documents pertaining to grant panel reviews, such as scoring sheets, comment sheets, or worksheets, are withheld. The NEA has considered the foreseeable harm standard in reviewing records and applying the exemptions. And then I wrote back and I said, this is non-responsive. You're purposely hiding something. And they said, it is the agency's policy and procedure not to disclose the panel review and scoring sheets. Here it is. Listen to this. This is necessary to preserve the integrity of the agency's decision-making process and to allow panel members to freely engage in internal debate without fear of public scrutiny. So in other words, this Freedom of Information Act, where we're supposed to have, which is supposed to be, which was created so that the public can have scrutiny, can't have scrutiny. They have to be free from public scrutiny. So are they a public agency? They shouldn't be free from public scrutiny, right? I should know what they said about me. So I am going to appeal it. It's going to be an exercise in futility, but hopefully I can publish this out somewhere and talk about it, maybe embarrass them a little bit. I mean, I'm one little person and the NEA is, a monolith, but perhaps something can be done. But that's the bigotry in the arts that we are facing, ladies and gentlemen. People on the right, we are treated the way, I would say, the way minorities were treated in this country 40 years ago or more. We are ostracized. But we are not victims. That's the thing. We can complain about it, but we're not victims. We do not make it part of our life to be victims and to stop action and to stop fighting back because we're victims. We're not victims here at Stage Right. You're not a victim, but we are wronged, and people should know about it. So there'll be more on this as I continue with my appeal to the NEA. I mean, I don't know if I appealed to the NEA, but anyway, next topic on the potpourri of today's show. I have a book I want to recommend to you. It is called American Covenant. American Covenant by Yuval Levin. And I highly recommend this book. This is a book which is subtitled How the Constitution Unified Our Nation and Could Again. So what Levin does in this book. And if you don't know who Yuval Levin is, I read him in National Review a number of times. He is the director of social, cultural, and constitutional studies at the American Enterprise Institute. He's the founder and editor of National Affairs. He's a senior editor at the New Atlantis, contributing editor at National Review, contributing opinion writer at the New York Times, and he has other books. And he was a former member of the White House domestic policy staff under George W. Bush. So, American Covenant is a book about the Constitution, the way it is formed, its branches, its checks and balances. And what Levin talks about is its original conception, meaning that it was formed, particularly Congress. He talks a lot about Congress. And I mean, it's the first thing you hear, or rather read, in our Constitution. It's Article 1 is the formulation of the legislature. But American Covenant talks about each branch of government, but the Congress has a special place because, according to Levin, it is the one that was it was judged to be most important by the founders. Now, you may think that's the president, right? But no, the president does not have the most important role. The most important role is the legislature, not only because it controls the purse strings, makes the laws, etc., but also because it is purposely designed to be a deliberative body, give and take. I'm a representative of a state or a portion of a state. I'm going to come in with my constituents' wants and desires. You're going to come in from a different state and with different wants and desires, and we're going to wrestle and tassel it over it. And wrestle and tassel? I don't know. We're gonna discuss it. We're going to give and take, and we're going to finally come out with something that both sides can live with, even if one side is not getting everything nor the other side is getting everything. We're neither fully satiated or fully disappointed. And this takes time. It's a deliberative body that takes time to do that. And he's saying basically that we have lost this. We've lost the practice of the legislature. Instead, it is one party dictating what it wants and stamping its feet and filibustering and all that kind of stuff. So he is talking about that. He talks about the role of the president, how it changed drastically from because of people like Woodrow Wilson and the progressive era, which kind of pushed the executive into the chief administrator and took the focus away from the legislature because Wilson thought it took too long, and instead put it onto the president. And that's why we have presidents who are more figurehead, godlike kings that we do, the executor of the state. And so he talks about the courts, and he talks about what we can do to get it back to where it should be. And so I highly recommend American Covenant by Yuval Levin. This is how the Constitution unified our nation and could again. And I hope it does, because we have gotten so far away from the Constitution that we're becoming an unrecognizable country. I think if the founders came today, they would say, what did you people do? Anyway, we're almost done here, so I want to tell you about my festival. The 9th Annual Theater Festival by Stage Right will be January 31st, February 1st, and 2nd. If you have a short 10, 20-minute play that you'd like to present, I would suggest you go to my website, which is stagert.org, stagert.org. Take a look at the submission guidelines on my website. And send me a play. I would love to look at it. I can look at full lengths, but I don't have a lot of time for that right now. Right now, I'm looking at short plays with fewer than 5 characters, no special lighting, no special crazy sets. I can't have a Trojan horse come on or anything like that. We can't build a wall, although I hope we do in the southern part of the country. So that's January 31st, February 1st and 2nd. I'll be giving you more information. And it will be live streamed, so you do not have to be in Ohio to see it. You don't have to be in the theater. You can watch it live streamed, and I hope you do. And I hope you'll consider donating to Stage Right, because, and that we talk about that on my website too, because we are really struggling and we need to be able to be an alternative voice to the hegemony of the left today. We need to be an alternative voice to Robin, what's her name? Robin D'Angelo. Robin D'Angelo. We need to be an alternative voice to Jody Brown. We need to be an alternative voice to Regina Jackson and Saira Rao. We need to be an alternative voice to anybody in the arts who wants to dismiss us. We're also going to be starting a new program this year with a Stage Right, and that is we're going to be presenting lesser-known plays by great American authors. We're going to start with one of my favorites, Eugene O'Neill, arguably the first major American playwright, and I'm calling this program tentatively Before They Were Gods. And we're going to start with O'Neill's short plays, and then later on in the season, we're going to do Desire Under the Elms by Eugene O'Neill. So I hope you can be interested. You would be interested in these things. I hope you'd be interested in my season. I hope you're interested in this podcast. Spread the word, please. Let people know about what we're doing here at Stage Right. We're fighting the good fight. Pretty soon, I'm going to have some guests on this show to entertain you and me. And also, we're going to try and do a call-in show. So I'm working on all these things, but right now, take a look at my website, stagert.org. Donate to Stage Right. If you need to contact me, I'm at stageright826 at gmail.com, stageright826 at gmail.com. Whew, that was a lot of stuff in half an hour. But I do want to tell you, don't forget our motto at Stage Right, which is disagreement does not equal hate. Have a wonderful day, folks, and I will see you next time on Stage Right. Toodles.